Welcome to the Hard to Kill podcast. I'm Mark Rhodes, and this series is all about resilience, overcoming adversity, and inspirational humans. Joining us today is James Elliot. James served 14 years in the Army to pursue a career in mental resilience and performance coaching, having finished his military career as the second in command of all British Army's mental resilience delivery. James sought operational service in Afghanistan and went on to become one of the British Army's first tactical parachute instructors. He has 2 Guinness World Records for playing both rugby sevens and rugby tens for over 24 and a half hours straight, respectively, and has delivered resilience and performance packages to Paralympians, Special Forces soldiers, and to senior members of the automotive industry. So, first and foremost, James, I want to welcome you on the show. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm good. It's a Friday evening, which can only mean one thing, and that means that I'll be doing more DIY tomorrow, which is
wrapped up for the night, mate. Awesome.
Oh, mate, yeah. Well, it's what happens when you buy a new house, right? And you say to the missus, like, are you like, I don't want to have to do loads of DIY, and she's like, I understand, babes. Don't worry, we won't be doing it. And then you're 4 weeks later, and you're still sanding floors. You're like, what happened?
Mate, we've recently moved out, and it was the same as well. Literally, she looks like she's been dragged through IKEA with fucking super glue on her. She came home and it was just like everywhere. And I was just like, right, can you build that? Can you build that? I was like, fuck's sake.
Yeah. I learned how to chisel doors though. Like that was loads of fun. I've no idea why on earth I needed to know, but I had to chisel doors and sand everything. It's been amazing.
The door's closed.
The door's now closed, mate. After chisels have been thrown, but like they're closed now.
There's a chisel in the wall, but the door's closed.
Yeah, exactly that, yeah.
Spot on. So, if you don't mind, James, basically what I want to do today is take the listeners through a little bit of a story, because obviously yours is an incredibly inspiring one and a very interesting one at that. So, first and foremost, mate, what made you want to join the Army in the first place?
Oh, wow. So, for me, it was kind of like this takes away, I think, from the inspirational side, but really it was kind of a sense of necessity. So, I left school at 16. I didn't really have anything to my name, and I tried a bit of a college thing, but I was mainly working building sites, and then was sort of sleeping rough, and didn't necessarily love my upbringing that much, and so sort of sofa surfing, staying at mates, sleeping a bit rough, and then I just almost out of desperation. But I remember reading a paper about sort of the Airborne Forces. I think it was the Sun. It was back when the Sun was like so pro the military. And the Sun did this big thing about the Airborne Forces. And actually, where I grew up wasn't actually that far from Bryce Norton. It was a little town called Whitney that's just around the corner from Bryce. And guys used to go out on their jumps course back then, and they go out on the source, and then they go into like Whitney, and they create all kinds of havoc. And you'd see these like big, confident guys, swaggering around and gobbing off and having a great time. And for me, I just thought, do you know what? Like, I want a bit of that. I want a slice of that. And that's why I went and I joined the Army, and obviously I went airborne, and it was, I love it. But I think I'd have loved it whatever unit I went to, because that sort of excitement and that real sense of purpose that the Army had. So I joined in 2006, and this isn't like some sort of horrendous pull up a sandbag or when I joined the Army. But it just had that real purpose and drive to it, because they had Telek really just finished for the brigade, but Herrick was really just kicking off in 2006. So I joined in the summer of 2006. So we had this real purpose of Herrick, and everything was Herrick focused. It was, you are going to go to Afghanistan, get training, get fit, and so you had that purpose, you had that drive, and everyone was pointing in the right direction for that. What a really exciting time. I was so lucky to sort of to join the Army in that time. And it was this real mix of really motivated guys, and there was like everything was like real competition. And I sort of look back at that, why did I join? And I joined because there was that excitement, there was that real buzz about being in the military. It came with that real air of it being something and being part of something. And then, I'm really, really glad that I did it. And I definitely wouldn't have the platform. I wouldn't be in the position. And I certainly wouldn't be the person that I am now if it wasn't for, the military. Like, my biological dad went to prison when I was a teenager, was a drug dealer and hideously abusive and violent. And really, particularly what I do now, in the psychology, we see like a repetition of cycles and behaviors. Like, I often think, like, if I didn't join the military and I didn't have that authority and I didn't have that respect and I didn't have that structure instilled into my life, would I have repeated that cycle? And it's hard to say, no, definitely not, because there is a real possibility. So join the Army because it little did I know, but at the time, you know, it would change my life so much for the better. And one of the biggest things that I always say on anyone who comes on my channel or anyone who comes and works with me is that you can't be anti the military. The military is an incredible establishment, and the military will give you an amazing platform, and it will give you friendships, and it will give you experiences, and it will give you discipline, and it will give you like a sense of honor and respect, integrity, like all these great things that it will give you if you embrace it. And yeah, okay, maybe people's careers don't end how they you know originally dreamed that they would, but eventually people's careers do end, and it's very easy to then hate on the military, but you have to remember is everything that the military has given you. So I joined the military because I didn't really have that much going for me, but I'm really, really glad that I did, because it gave me so much more.
100%, mate. That's like an incredible answer. So comprehensive. But the one thing I want to extrapolate from that is what you said about, you know, people are more than happy to turn around and talk about all the shit stuff that happened off the back of a military career, or like, oh, I haven't got any qualifications, I haven't got any sense of community left, I'm a fucking nobody, I've got nothing going for me. But if you're going to blame something, you have to blame it wholeheartedly and blame it for the good stuff as well. Because even in today's society, the sense of pride, discipline, self-respect, commitment, like all that sort of stuff that you get off the back of it, you will not find in any other organization around the world.
Yeah, and like absolutely right, because you live that life. And I know that, I mean, it changes, and someone's going to comment that you are absolutely Webster's, but that's sea drills, that courage, discipline, respect, integrity, loyalty, and selfless commitment. But it does give you those things, and it's not just as a, you know, as a statement. Like when you fully commit to the military, you fully commit to the experiences within it, you then adopt that as a mantra that is embedded in, if anyone who's sort of read the Chimp Paradox, I know it's very popular. If you were to refer to that, like Professor Steve Peters would call that your stone of truth, the things that you hold deep within your cognitive memory. That is important. It's that courage, physical courage and moral courage is important. The discipline, like so many soldiers still get up and still make their bed every morning, and they're very proud of that. They respect, you know, they still turn up to the Remembrance Day parade. They always wear a poppy. You know, they treat their veterans and the elderly with respect. You know, they like to think that they've got a sense of morality, and they're always very truthful. They're very loyal to themselves, and they're loyal to those that they love, and they do work hard for something other than them. And then they'll go, the army shit, and you go, you live sea drills still, like you live that life. So don't pretend the army shit and beneath you, or the military shit and beneath you, because it is not, because you can see it in your behaviour. Particularly then when you see them in the pub wearing their regimental t-shirt and a pair of cut-off desert trousers.
In a fucking pub para gobbing off.
No, but that is, you know, that is the truth. You know, you see people in their whatever regiment, like t-shirt, whatever, you know, wearing cut-off desert shorts in a pub. But the army shit, stop wearing its clothes then.
Yeah, be yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, so brilliant. Off the back of that, we've spoken a lot about the benefits of the army. What would you say are the adverse effects that a lot of blokes who sign off experience when they do sign off?
Okay, so I think that the army is a machine, and the army marches on. So one of the things that I often find when people sign off is they sign off and they go, this place will fall apart without me. No, it won't, mate. Like it won't. Like the army, you are a very small cog, and the army is this huge, amazing, incredible machine. And it is a little bit cumbersome, and it is a little bit slow at times. There is a lot of bureaucracy, and there is a lot of policy that doesn't always make that much sense. But the army is a machine, and you are a cog within it. And if you no longer fit that machine struggles to find a place where you fit. So the reality of the situation is that the negative sides of the military, particularly when you sign off and you say, I'm a cog and I no longer fit in this machine. The machine now has a resettlement process so that cog can get out of it. But don't try and be a cog staying in that machine. Don't try and tip the boat. Don't try and be a poison apple. Don't try and be a pain in the ass. Don't try and fight against that system, because you're going to lose. Like I see people who want to sign off but don't sign off, but they don't sign off because they know that they're going to struggle on Civvy Street, but then they try and be as difficult as possible whilst they're still in their regiment, and they wind up why things go from bad to worse for them. Stop. Like the army is a machine, and it must keep marching on. It must keep moving forward. It can't stop for any one individual. Like we are all parts of this moving machine. So if you no longer fit, the army is a machine, and it must unfortunately remove you, and you must move on. Like, but that's life, and that's part of it. After, whether that be after 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, 22, 24, even 35 years, at some point your cog no longer fits in that machine, because you don't stay in the army for a million years. You stay in the army, generally speaking, you know, till the end of your contract. Till, you know, most people leave around their 12-year point. Some people do their full 22, 24, but at that 22, 24-year point, your cog no longer fits in that machine. And even if you do get your LE and you get extended to your 35-year point, at that 35-year point, your cog no longer fits that machine. And it's about embracing that. It's about understanding that it's not anything personal. The army's not going to fall apart without you. It's not that the regiment doesn't like you. It's not that your friends don't love you or your chain of command aren't like really fond of you. It's not a case of that at all. It's just a case of you no longer fit that purpose, and it's time for you to find the purpose in which you do fit. And I think a lot of people are quite put out by that. They're quite put out by the fact that they sign off and they go, it's like the army doesn't give a fuck. But it doesn't as a whole. It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't as a whole. Like, they were your friends who will care about you, and there might be the odd boss who might care about you, and your sergeant major, obviously, particularly if you've done 12, 15 years, whatever, wants you to do well. But the army doesn't care. People leave every day, and the army still marches on. Like, it doesn't. You're right. So it offers this resettlement process, which I think is a really good package. I do think the resettlement process is really, really good. The only problem with it is that you are left to your own devices. And so you go from this really to, all right, do what you want. Go on, do your leave, go and have your individual leave allowance, go and do your termination leave, go and do whatever, go and do your thing. And that is often quite a lot for one little cog to manage, because that is like, oh my God, what do I do now?
Literally going from being told where to be, with what, at what time, on a daily basis, then all of a sudden, square yourself away. It's up to you. You've got to crack on. Just as we were talking about before we got on the line, you know, of, I can't remember the phrase you used for it.
Learned helplessness.
Yeah, that was it. Learned helplessness, which I think, to be honest, it expands way outside of just the military community. Of people that just like, they have learned to be helpless because they've been spoon-fed everything throughout their entire existence.
Well, I mean, okay, so learned helplessness as a concept is rife and everywhere. Okay, so when we look at it from racist grannies and we excuse them because we say it's not her fault, it's her generation, to people who are like grossly overweight who say it's not my fault, it's glandular, and it's, you know, and I've always eaten this, or I've always done that, you know, I never drink water. And that is learned helplessness. Okay, so learned helplessness is a massive concept, but it's effectively where you are excusing your own behavior because of something else. Effectively that, something external, something uncontrollable. Okay, I don't want to like massively overcomplicate this, but if we look at like attribution theory, where it's got controllable and uncontrollable, internal and external factors, effectively learned helplessness is blaming your situation or a behavioral pattern or an attitude, behavior, belief upon an external uncontrollable factor. So it's not my fault, it's the way I was raised. From a veteran's perspective, it's not my fault, it's my mental health. Okay, right. Stop. Because if you're blaming it on an external uncontrollable factor, then you will never have control of it, and it will always rule your life. So for example, people who are grossly overweight, who are always eating crap, and they're like, but this is, I was always fed this is all I know, so I can't change this behavior, or it's glandular. They are then going to continue that cycle of behavior until it eventually kills them. That is just how it works. So what we found is if you provide an alternative, that isn't always enough to make people change. People will change when the pain of repeating a cycle becomes worse than breaking it. So when a behavior pattern, when people are going into hospital for the 5th time and they're being told their foot's going to be amputated because they're diabetic, and they go home, at that point they go, do you know what? This is now, it's going to cause me more pain to repeat this cycle than it is just to not go home and eat another cheesecake or another bag of Haribo. Soldiers, like, they get to the point where they are homeless, and then they look inwardly and go, do you know what? Maybe it's my behavioral pattern. Maybe something I need to do needs to change. And we call that cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance theory is where you disagree with your own attitudes, behaviors, beliefs. So when you're actually looking inwardly and you're going, do you know what? If I look at this objectively, I've been the idiot. Do you know what? If I look at this objectively, I shouldn't eat. I shouldn't wake up and have a bag of hobnobs for breakfast. You know, like all that kind of stuff. That is cognitive dissonance theory. But what is the best way to achieve this? So how do you convince a person to change? Because generally speaking, people don't change unless they want to change. So we talk about this pain of cycle. But then does it have to get that bad? Does it have to get that bad where the pain of repeating the cycle becomes so bad that they just choose to break it? Can you actually instigate change within an individual without their life having to spiral into absolute nonsense beforehand? You say, well, yeah, You can, because when we look at like positive and negative reinforcement, when we look at like giving someone something for achieving or punishing them for not, actually what we tend to find is that if we positively reward behaviors that we want to see with an element of role model theory, then people are far more susceptible to change. So rather than punishing someone for eating another cheesecake who is grossly overweight and diagnosed with diabetics and about to lose a foot, rather than do that, which seems crazy, right? Because they're about to have their leg cut off with diabetes. But instead, positively reward the behavior that you want to see repeated. So when they don't eat the cheesecake, reward them. Say whatever that level of reward may be. And that is obviously very subjective to that individual. But if you reward that individual, they're then far more likely to repeat that behavior, rather than if they eat the cheesecake, you go and uppercut. Like that's not, they will just keep repeating that behavior. That will add to their learning.
Just get better at hiding it.
Yeah, just get better at hiding it. Yeah, hiding the uppercut or the cheesecake.
Yeah, so, hiding the scoff on the cheesecake so they don't get a forward assist to the throat.
But you see the point, right? So actually, for a role model theory, so my point is if we want to instigate change on a high level, the best thing you can do is be a role model of that change and encourage people to do it, rather than punish them when they don't. Encourage people to do it, but also sort of be a figurehead for that change. So
100%, mate. And there's so much to unpack off the back of that. But one thing that you kind of touched on that I want to use as a vehicle to talk about is locus of control. And obviously you spoke about the multiple different elements that are contributing to that. But ultimately my role, and essentially your role as well in now your sort of semi-civilian profession, is to be an agent of change for people, and hopefully help them before it gets to the point where every possible outcome is bad.
Yeah.
So with regards to locus of control, what's your take on that and helping people to facilitate change before it gets to a shit state?
Well, I'd always argue that locus of control is self-esteem related. So a locus of control is obviously, for those who know, internal and external locus of control. So an internal locus of control is I'm in control and I'm in control of my future, I'm in control of my fate. I am the master of my fate, I'm the captain of my soul, right? And then an external is that learned helplessness. It's not my fault. It's an external, uncontrollable factor, and there's nothing that I can do about it. So what we tend to find with people with a really, really high internal locus of control, people with a really high internal locus of control have got a huge amount of self-esteem, self-efficacy, self-belief, self-confidence. So how can we amend somebody's self-belief? How can we amend someone's self-efficacy? Well, actually, crazily enough, that it is like 2-3 weeks linked. It is very temporary. A person's self-esteem can be lifted very quickly within like 2 weeks. We see it all the time. Think about holidays. People go on a holiday, people go on a long holiday, and they come back and they feel great and they're in such a great mood. Their self-esteem, their outlook, their perspective on life has been massively boosted simply by removing themselves from their stress stimuli inducing environment and putting themselves in a relaxing environment, having a good time, getting on a plane, building their self-confidence, having some fun, having some drinks, sitting on a beach, whatever a holiday looks like to you, and then returning to their environment. They have changed their perspective. So it's self-esteem. Self-esteem is just how we view the world through our own lenses. It's like the filter that we put on the world. If we get thrown onto an arduous course, okay, like most young lads are like, oh, I love it, this is brilliant, this is fantastic. They've got high self-esteem, they've got these lenses on these filters, they're seeing this arduous course, they're seeing their peer company, the commando course, their selection that they have volunteered for, and they're seeing opportunity, they're seeing excitement, okay. But most other people put in that and they go, I can't manage that, I can't cope, I don't want to go and do that. Like, go do 10 milers, like no cheers, no tar. That's actually because their self-esteem is so low. They're not more intelligent than the people who are choosing to do those courses, which is what they'll always suggest. That's like the coping mechanism, is to say, no, I'm too intelligent to run about in the mud. The reality is that they lack self-esteem to do it. Like people go, you're amazing world record attempt where you're going to cycle the length of the UK, then swim the Channel and then cycle to Paris. Like, that is absolutely incredible. And actually, be cool in the Channel, you'd be waving at people going the other way, like people in dinghies, like.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is actually we Jen can't like run from Calais to Paris. We have to get back on the ferry, go back to Dover, go back in legally, because at that point apparently the illegal immigration works both ways, and we're illegal immigrants in France at that point.
Yeah, but like that make you run faster. Anyway, so what we tend to find is people with low self-esteem therefore have a high external locus of control.
Yeah.
So people with a low self-esteem don't rate their ability to manage a situation and therefore look to external things to manage it for them. So actually, by boosting a person's self-esteem, you will change their locus of control. If you make a person believe, like, you know, through experience, through just by positive psychology, by altering the way that their internal voice speaks to them, if they can change that, then they become more confident in their own abilities. They become more self-reliant. They become, you know, more confident in their own abilities and their skill set and their physique and their health and their mindset. They become more and more confident, and therefore they have a far greater internal locus of control. People with an almost 100% internal locus of control are some of the most successful people in the world, because they understand that everything comes down to their work rate. And that 100%. Is locus of control.
It's so powerful. Exactly. Like, that is just an incredible soundbite. That past 5 minutes when you're talking about everything involved in that, and people, I often refer to it as like inside out thinking or outside in thinking, you know, where people are either a victim of the world around them, in which case they're always at the mercy of the world, the weather, fucking traffic, whatever, or people that have like such an internal drive, positivity, for want of a better phrase, that they kind of infect the world around them, and they create their own chessboard, they create their own situation. Now, a big part for me about, you know, having an internal locus control is visualization, which is also something that I know that you speak about a lot. So could you go into a little bit of detail about A, the importance of visualization, and B, how everyday individuals can facilitate visualization to achieve even everyday tasks to a higher standard?
So I think there's multiple effects really to visualization. So first and foremost, if we were looking at skill mastery, using visualization for skill mastery, if you engage the same neural patterns by imagining a activity as you would do by doing it. So if you were to close your eyes and really visualize, say for example, a weapon handling test. You were to be told you had a weapon handling test. Nobody goes into the weapon handling test having not thought about it, right? You don't go in there and do it automatically. You think, then you go, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to see a rifle on the floor, okay, safety catch, change, lever aside, remove the magazine, all that kind of stuff, right? You're going to go through it, and you practice in your head and you practice in your mind. Now that process can actually improve your performance. Well, how does that work? Well, simply by engaging those neural patterns, it becomes more integrated memory. It becomes better embedded within your cognitive memory. So actually, by sitting there and going through and practicing and engaging all of your senses, seeing you as in a POV, seeing like yourself walking into the room, whatever they're doing a test, you know, the bed's turned up on their side, picking up the rifle, how it's going to feel, the coldness, the slight stiffness. It's always quite embarrassing when you can't hold the cocky lever back. Like 18 years old, like that, and there's some like horrible bloke like looking at you, Elliot, what are you doing? Like that. Yeah, we've all been there.
I think it's broken.
It's broken stuff. And then so doing it that way, you know, engaging that. So skill mastery, because by engaging those cognitive patterns, you're improving the process. So actually then when you go in, okay, and then you then go through and you visualize it in so much detail, you've engaged all the senses, gone into so much great detail. Actually, when you pick it up, if you did it enough, it could become muscle memory. So now now you are actually doing it without thinking. Now in an almost sort of professional athlete kind of way, you're absolutely hammering through it. But that's not the only positive effect that we can see through visualization, because if you were to visualize your day and your life and what it is you're going to do positive, you think, right, okay, cool, I'm going to get up now, I'm going to go smash some fish, it's going to be great. Once done that, I'm going to tank my breakfast, I'm then going to pop into work, I'm going to do this till naffy, and then after naffy I'm going to go and do this, and I'm going to do that and that and that, and then I'm going to go to the gym overnight time, I'm going to get into my pit, nice and tired, well hydrated, have a good night's sleep. But what you're doing there, okay, is you are thinking more positively, and you're engaging those positive emotions. You are feeling them. You're getting a release of dopamine. You're getting a release of serotonin, and then you're going, okay, cool, right. And now there is a physiological response. Now I'm not just talking about think positive, and that kind of very airy-fairy, wafty doesn't really mean that much. I'm actually talking about engaging the physiological response. I'm talking about calming the amygdala, which is the emotional center of the brain, by using your reasoning and your logic, which is in your prefrontal cortex. So now we're using our prefrontal cortex to calm our amygdala, to calm our autonomous nervous system, which is our fight or flight response, okay, which is always constantly being engaged by something. We are creating something called homeostasis, a nice resting heart rate, okay, a nice calm position. And now we're in a really great position to use our reasoning and our logic and then have a good day. We are engaging physiological responses very deliberately to then have a good day, because we are reasoning and we are in control and we are thinking logically. So literally just that moment to just think positively about your day, break it down. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. Then I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to do that. Think positively about it. Not like, oh, it's going to be horrendous, because then you're engaged in that fight or flight. You're going to fawn away from your day. Oh, I don't want to do it. Rather than just think, right, I'm going to go out. I'm going to do this, do that, do that. Okay, I'm going to push through. Yeah, it's raining outside, but that doesn't matter. I'll be in here having a brew, tanking my hobnobs. Everyone's happy. That is a great way to then give yourself a positive day, but positive days lead to positive weeks, lead to positive months, lead to a hugely successful year. You know, when we talk about the character traits of very successful people, it's an internal locus of control, and it's that ability to stay positive and a flexibility of mindset as well. But yeah, so there are multiple effects of positive thinking.
In a nutshell, yeah, the benefit of visualization. So I'm aware of time a little bit with you, James, but basically what I want to do is just leave the listeners with 3 rules, absolute rules, non-negotiables for being successful on a daily basis. What would they be?
Hydrate. Like we have like the Maslow's pyramid of motivation, right? Because at the bottom you've got like basic psychological needs, and at the very top you've got self-awareness. Now I'm trying to turn this into sort of a psychological model, where I'm saying actually like the very bottom of it is like hydration, it's nutrition, it's sleep hygiene, and at the very top it's counseling. Because people want to go from, I'm in a bad way, I need counseling. And one of the first things I always asked people who come to me was, how much water have you drunk today? Be them pro athletes, be them veterans in a bad way, be them prison leavers. How much water have you drunk today? Because we are not looking after our basic needs. We need to hydrate. We need good sleep hygiene. We need to eat the right food. So the first thing I would say, the first bit, and it's the most controllable thing, and it's the best way of proving to me that you are motivated and you are committed, is start drinking more water. Like depending upon your lifestyle, but aim for 4 or 5 litres of water a day. Just keep drinking water. Just carry a big bottle of water around with you. Just keep refilling it and keep drinking it. All right. Stay hydrated. Okay. We've all been in that position in training. Oi, Joe, show me 4 water bottle. Like that is part
nice.
of it. Yeah. Right. It's a good thing to have, having a full water bottle. So have a full water bottle with you and stay hydrated. Secondly, communication. Okay. Communicate with each other. And this doesn't mean like some god awful thing. Okay. That's like going around, like literally just asking somebody twice how they are. I'm not talking about, you know, because we see so many memes about this and stuff, blah, 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 blah. Like there's 2 things to communicate better are asking somebody twice how they are and asking them the question, what's on your mind? Like that's put as a Facebook status for a reason. You know, when it's before you type in the grey writing there is what's on your mind, because it's such a powerful question. Because what is on your mind? What is on your mind is a great opener to get people to vote. When we can see people struggling, and we've all done mental health awareness, we are all aware that there is an issue, and some people have really bad days. When someone's having a really bad day, asking them the question, what is on your mind, is really, really powerful. And it's really, really important. So let's start communicating better. So my 2 points so far are hydration. Are you drinking enough water? Are you looking after your basic physiological needs? And the second point, is learn to question, learn to communicate better. And my third and final point is social learning theory. We are products of the 5 people we spend the most amount of time with. Yeah. Who are you spending time with? Like if you are spending your time with athletes who aren't interested, if you're spending your time with soldiers who don't care, if you are spending time with people who drain your energy, then you are going to be drained, you are going to be dragged down, and it is going to have a really detrimental effect on you. So my 3 points are hydration, communication, social learning theory. Improve your circle.
Right, absolutely incredible points. The third one especially is just like spend time around people who fucking sustain you, not drain you.
Yeah.
And it's something everyone has to go through on a path of growing. Is unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately, you will fall out of friendship with people you used to be very close with, and you'll make new friends in places you couldn't have anticipated, and they will grow you, they will challenge you, and you'll build, flourish and develop as you never anticipated. And then right back to the first point, it's so basic, but I 100% agree. It's the very most simplistic human need other than oxygen is to fucking drink. And it baffles me that people forget to do it. I hammer this into my clients first thing in the morning before you have a brew. Get a fucking pint of water down you, and you feel like a different human almost instantaneously. And it's so imperative. So as I said, I'm aware of time, dude, but like what you've given us has been absolutely gold, mate. There's so much the value that we can extract from that. And I know it's going to be very, very well received to everyone that listens. I think I'm safe in saying there's so much more that we can extract from in the future. So if we can get some more time of you moving forward, it'd be fantastic to have you back on again. But yeah, I just want to thank you for your time today, mate.
No, thank you very much for having me, mate. Genuinely, it's been a real pleasure. I'm always really flattered when anyone ever approaches me. And as I said sort of before we started recording, like veterans come first for me. So if you want to do some more stuff together, you want to do some collaborative work, I'd definitely be available for that, especially if it means being able to push the popularity and understanding and knowledge of what it is that you're doing with your world record. Then I would definitely be up for that, because I think it's a really important thing to promote.
Superb, mate. Incredible.